Hey guys, Super Airsoft back again with another Airsoft video, and today we're going to be reviewing the Inferno Gen 2 engine by Wolverine Airsoft, as well as the Storm Category 5 Airsoft HPA Regulator. Both of these combined into your setup is going to make you an absolute unit out there on the playing field. We're going to be reviewing each of them individually. We're going to be showing how to install as well as use them, as well as a couple of pros and cons associated with each. Just a quick disclaimer, Wolverine Airsoft did provide both of these items for me for the sake of this review, but that will not be changing my opinion of what I found throughout this review process. Just a sneak peek, this is the Wolverine Inferno Gen 2 engine build that I created. There's a lot of cool stuff in here. Parts list for this will be in the description below. Now, the gun itself is not the main focus of the video. I just put together the build because I think it looks pretty sweet, and the next gameplay video that I'll be posting is going to be featuring this guy. So keep an eye out for that. All right, to get things started, let's start talking about the Inferno Gen 2 engine. Firstly, if you're a player that values shot-to-shot consistency, really nice crisp trigger responses, as well as quality air efficiency, this is the HPA engine for you. There are lots of engines out there in the market, but this one is especially really good for those people who actually like to tweak their setups for optimal performances, or those who just want something that can easily be dropped into an M4, M249, or AK platform, put in a couple screws, make one or two modifications, and then be up and running. Whether you play CQB and need that really quick fire rate, as well as really crisp trigger pull, or you're playing outdoors for those really long ranges and need to push out a lot of FPS, this engine has you covered A to Z. This system is also really perfect for those who don't really want to spend a ton of hours modifying their stuff and really just want an engine that they can drop in and get going. The drop-in design really makes it accessible for beginner level airsoft techs, as well as very well seasoned airsoft techs out there. In my experience, this is one of the easiest HPA engines to install. We'll talk about the installation steps a little bit later down, but take my word for it, this thing was very easy to just put in there and get work. From my use case, the FPS seemed to be very consistent, the shots seemed to be very accurate, pushing the exact amount of air every single time really nicely. It's designed to use less air per shot compared to various other competitors, which means you get more shots out of your tank, more time shooting players, less time worrying about how much air is left for that game. The standard trigger board had a really crisp trigger pull every time it would actually actuate. You could feel the instantaneous response in the air release. It's got a hybrid design, which means no first round dry fire, easy to tune. Overall, a fantastic system. So this drop-in kit can be used for M4s, M249s, or AKs, and it comes with either the Spartan or the premium electronics. The Spartan electronics does not come with an external FCU. All programming is limited to the trigger board itself and is embedded within there. If you buy the premium electronics, you'll have an external FCU where you have a lot more functionality and a lot more control and fine tuning. The difference between the Spartan electronics and the premium electronics is about $65, so you really have to put in a little bit more research, see if that's well worth it for you. If you want a lot more tuning abilities, as well as the comfort and availability of an external FCU versus one that is on the trigger board itself, that might be worth it. Now let's take a closer look at the Inferno Gen 2 itself. The Inferno Gen 2 is beautifully machined with high quality components. You can see the craftsmanship there. You can see the single solenoid technology as well, and also see how it is lined in the center, which eliminates the issues with uneven airflow and helps maintain that shot consistency that we talked about earlier. It's got that beautiful red, solid construction, and overall, I think a real piece of kit. Let's do a quick unboxing of the Inferno Gen 2. Inside this beautiful box, and honestly, the boxes for Wolverine's products are insane. This is some seriously high quality stuff, and the fact that it comes with all this stuff is great. That's just a side tangent. But going back to the product itself, inside the box, it comes with the Wolverine engine, as well as a really sick patch that I will be using. Each of their products seem to come with their own patch. You'll also see the Storm Cat 5 patch as well when I unbox that, but this patch is awesome. Underneath the box, you'll see a warranty card / authentication card. It also comes with a nice quality integral grip line, a couple of O-rings, which is amazing to see in case something breaks and you need to do some sort of maintenance. It comes with all the O-rings that you would need to replace it. Awesome. Now this is the one that comes with the Spartan electronics. So I have the Spartan trigger board here in all its glory, really well made piece of electronic. And lastly, it comes with a buffer tube adapter, which is honestly a godsend. I wish more people would actually include this in their engine packages. It just makes things a lot easier. You'll see me actually putting this in during the installation portion of this video. It's just really nice to have. And honestly, that's quality and actually caring about their product right there. All right, now that you got that information, let's switch gears onto the Storm Category 5 Airsoft Regulator. This is a ton of product in a tiny little package, and it's awesome. One of the main reasons that you would probably want one of these things is if you want something that's going to be consistent, no matter the environment that you're in, whether you're hot or cold, using CO2, using HPA, going full auto, requiring very, very high PSI, all of the above at once. This thing should be able to cover all of those conditions. It's also built like a tank. This is relatively heavy for how small it is. It's built to withstand really rough use on the field. It's meant to be a workhorse. It's got a higher PSI output. It's more accurate. It's more consistent, and overall a really good product compared to like what I've used before in the past. Super lightweight, very compact, and being able to push out almost 200 PSI. That's awesome. Honestly, just the fact that it's really small helps a lot. One of the main cons that I did find while using it, and the only con that I really have for this regulator, is the fact that depressurizing the regulator is kind of weird. It's weird to me, might not be weird for you if you're used to doing it this way already. The previous regulator that I had before, I could unscrew a valve that's separate from the regulator itself. That way I can disconnect the connection between the regulator and the tank itself without disconnecting the regulator itself. With the Stormcat 5, I have to disconnect the regulator just a little bit and then let air out in order to bleed the regulator before unscrewing the regulator itself off the tank. I think that's kind of weird and kind of finicky, but that's just me, and which is fine. All right, let's do a quick unboxing again. I already said this once, but their product boxes are awesome. This one's got a cool flip-up design. But besides that, inside the box, you have the regulator itself in all its glory. Another fantastic patch that I will be using. Underneath that, you'll see an amazing line. This is a 36-inch braided, very, very high construction line in this really nice sleek black. This thing looks amazing. It's got their Wolverine little logo stamped on it as well in silver, which is a nice touch. Solid line that I will be using. Again, also comes with a little pack of O-rings, which is perfect to see because the chances of actually blowing out an O-ring when it comes to regulators, relatively high, but not too high. So really nice to see. It also comes with an Allen wrench, which is what you will use to make your PSI go up or down. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. It also comes with this little clear piece of acrylic or something like that. Someone comment down below what this could be used for. I don't know what it is, forgive me, but extra stuff. Always like to see extra stuff. You also get another warranty / authentication card, as well as a very detailed quick start guide for those who don't know how to use a regulator. It also gives you a quick tip on maintenance. The regulator is beautifully constructed. Like the size is one thing, but just look at it. It looks so nice. It looks hefty. It looks quality. It feels quality. The craftsmanship here in all their products actually is just amazing. All right, now that we have both of those things unboxed and gone through a quick overview of all the products, let's go ahead and jump into installing your Inferno Gen 2 into an AEG. I have a more thorough and detailed video on how to gut out your AEG and take all the internals and replace it with an HPA engine that you might want to watch. If you want to reference something a little bit more detailed, come back to this video and you can watch this video for specifics on the Inferno Gen 2. Here I have just a Lancer Tactical gearbox, completely stripped out, cleaned of all the grease, and gotten rid of all the gears and all the stuff that's on the inside. All right, we're going to start with the trigger assembly. We're going to grab the trigger assembly as well as the screw that we want to install. This is a screw that's not going to be included with the trigger assembly and the Gen 2. This is one that you want to keep from when you disassembled your AEG gearbox. You want to go ahead and slide in the trigger assembly into the gearbox as shown here, making sure there's enough clearance for the selector plate to not interfere too much with the full auto switch that's on the back of the trigger board. Once the trigger board's in there, go ahead and screw that in here in this screw spot and make sure that everything is nicely snug and fit. Now there may be one or two little fitment issues depending on your gearbox, but I had absolutely none. So this was a breeze to install. Once you have that trigger board in there, it's screwed all in, go ahead and route your wires that come from the trigger board down into this channel below. All right, next thing that you want to do is grab your Inferno Gen 2, flip it to the back so you can see the little threaded hole at the very bottom, and grab your integral grip line that came with your Wolverine Gen 2. Go ahead and screw that in. Make sure that the screw is nice and smooth and that you're not stripping that thread. Be very careful with not stripping the thread. Once that's in there, you really want to make sure that it's really nice and tight. If you need to use needle nose pliers or anything to make sure it's really tightly in there, go ahead and do so. And once you're done with that, you can just pick up the engine and integral grip line assembly and pop it on into your gearbox. Once that's in your gearbox, you want to route the integral grip line down into the motor hole. And lastly, the easiest step is to get the wire assembly from your trigger board that needs to connect into your engine itself and just plug it on it. At this point, you've installed your Inferno Gen 2. Next, what you want to do is grab the buffer tube adapter that Wolverine Airsoft has so graciously given to us and plop it into the very back. You want to make sure that the flat sides are facing you. Lastly, you want to grab your trigger and spring assembly and put it into the little trigger spot. Do a couple of test runs just to make sure that the trigger is functioning properly as a trigger and actually actuating the trigger button itself. Once that's in, just close your gearbox on up. Make sure there's no interference with any of the electronics when you're closing things up and putting screws in, and you're pretty much good to go. What I like to do personally, and stuff that I mentioned in the how to convert AEG to HPA video, is just put in a few screws and test out all three of the features: safety, semi, and full auto, and make sure that all of it just works smoothly and there are no issues with your electronic. After you've tested all of that, go ahead and put all the screws in, chuck it into your gun, and you'll be good to go. Now, this process was very easy for me. The only modifications that I had to do was in the motor grip. Since the battery harness is actually getting wired down into the motor grip, I had to make an additional cut in my motor grip itself to accommodate for the extra wire that's going to be coming down into the motor grip, apart from just the integral grip line. You could put the battery lead out the buffer tube side, but the wire is kind of short. So I wouldn't really recommend putting this out the buffer tube. The wire is a little bit on the shorter side, so it might not really make it all the way out to the buffer tube, and plugging in your battery through the buffer tube might be a little weird. So I made the decision to make it go down the motor grip instead of the buffer tube. And the fact that it went down motor grip is why I had to make that modification to the motor grip itself to accommodate for that extra wire. Other than that, I had no other issues. There are a couple of issues that can happen when it comes to converting an AEG to HPA that I go in a little bit of detail in the video that's probably circulating up here in one of the cards. It's a video where I go over converting a brand new AEG, gutting it out, completely converting it into one powered by HPA. That video is a great resource in conjecture with the installation portion of this video. Hopefully should be helpful. Now that it's in your gun, sealed up, you have this absolute beauty. This is my Inferno Gen 2 setup here. Again, one that I will be using in future gameplays to showcase how cool this engine is. Now, since there's no external FCU with the Spartan Electronics, the tuning is all trigger-based and trigger board based. There are a couple of commands that you can do with the trigger that'll enable you to make changes such as 3-round bursts, 2-round bursts, changing the rate of fire, as well as changing the dwell. Wolverine Airsoft has a very great video that I'm going to link in the description below on how to utilize all the features that are built into the Spartan Electronics trigger board. Now that that's installed, let's go ahead and install the Cat 5 regulator onto my HPA tank. It's super simple, and this is why I left it towards the very end of the video. You take your HPA tank, and you take your regulator, you put it on top, screw it, you'll feel a little bit of resistance, and then you continuously screw past that resistance. You'll see the needle shoot up on the regulator to whatever PSI it was at before. Continue screwing it until you can't really screw it anymore. Don't screw it too tight. There's no need to put too much force with it. Once it's screwed in nicely, it's pretty much installed. That's it. There's nothing really fancy with it. Now, if you want the PSI to go up, you get the Allen wrench that's included, put it into the PSI regulator hex screw, turn clockwise to make the PSI go up, and you'll see the PSI going up gradually as you turn. Now, if you go counterclockwise, you'll bring the PSI down. Now, you won't see that change reflected on the gauge until you let some air out of the regulator, either by connecting your gun and doing a couple of dry fires, or just going in and out with your line at the very end of the regulator and bleeding some of the air out. It's as simple as that. To take the regulator off, you have to do about 1 full turn of the regulator to disconnect the connection between the regulator and the tank, and then bleed out your regulator, and then take the regulator off. All right, I think we went over pretty much everything that we wanted to go over. Now, closing thoughts. I love Wolverine Airsoft. I think they release very amazing products, and you can see the love that they have towards the craft, both with the quality of their products, their quality of their packaging, stuff that's included in the packaging that they don't really even need to include, because some competitors don't. Their customer support seemed to be fantastic, and they're just and this is very Gen Z of me, but their entire vibe seems to be pure and airsoft player oriented. They want you to go out into the field, play, and enjoy HPA with their products. Sure, their products might not be perfect. Sure, there might be 1 or 2 things that you might prefer from a different line of products, from a different company. These people seem to genuinely care about the hobby of airsoft, and that's one thing that I can get behind. Now, they don't just sell the Inferno Gen 2 as well as the Cat 5. They have a ton of other products. Check out their link down in the description below. Check them out, see if their offerings suit you and your specific needs. Their price points are very competitive, and the quality product that you get is amazing for the price. They also have their MTW line, which are just full airsoft guns that you can purchase from them. If you don't really want to open up your airsoft gun and put in one of their drop-in kits, those seem to be actually really cool. There are a lot of additional features that come with those as well. Check those out, as well as the products that I mentioned today, again, in the description below. If you guys have any comments or questions about their products, anything airsoft related, comment down below. Like the video if you end up liking it. If you want to subscribe and watch more content like this, please hit that subscribe button. I try to post about once every week. I know there are a lot of new people subscribing to the channel, which is amazing and great to see. So thank you to everyone. Welcome everyone, and I'll see you in the next one.